Good morning. It seems like I did not record Chapter 8, so I'm going to do that right now and add it to the Chapter 8 assignment. So if you do not have it, you should be able to go back now and find that information. I will add that to an email to everyone. All right, so we're looking at Chapter 8, and it's Intro to Criminal Law. This is a relatively short chapter, but I think, so we'll get through it pretty quickly. All right, so beginning, Intro to Criminal Law. This is a quote from a guy by the name of Lawrence M. Friedman. And he says, criminal law has to do with the relations between the misbehaving individual and his government. I love that, the misbehaving individual. In other words, somebody who's doing something they shouldn't be doing, that's against the law. So, criminal law establishes the rules of conduct, their breach, and then if prosecuted, the conviction that follows results in punishment. All right, so that's short, succinct, and to the point. So if you get in trouble, you may just very well end up in jail. So, moving on. All right, the next one then is beginning the actual notes. Almost all crimes required some kind of act. In other words, a crime isn't a crime unless the specific things are included. I think you might remember the book that I've shown you that listed all of the different crimes that are out there. If you were part of the class that got to have the talk with Officer Snowden, he told us that he doesn't have to worry about that big heavy book. He's got it all on his phone. There is an app that talks about all the different crimes, and within each crime there are specific parts that have to be done or acted upon in order for it to be a crime. So another part of a crime is the state of mind. When the idea of putting together these laws, one of the things they wanted to include was the idea of state of mind. Were you guilty or not? Did you have a guilty mind as you were accomplishing your act? Was it something that you planned on doing? So it's a state of mind. Were you guilty or were you not guilty in terms of your state of mind? And then a motive. Often, most times, a criminal act occurs, especially if you have a guilty state of mind. There's a reason behind it. For someone, it may be as simple as I wanted to do it, or someone made me do it, or it could be I needed this, and so therefore I did the act of some sort. So those are things that you have to keep in mind when you are considering a crime. All right, now, strict liability, one thing to identify with that is there are certain things that are considered a crime, and it doesn't matter what your state of mind or your motive was. There's no excuses possible. You are guilty if you've done this thing. For example, I think one of the things that I think of would be if you had a 2-liter bottle of Coke or any type of soda for that matter, and it exploded without, the container it was in just exploded, and you were hurt as a result of that. That is strict liability. There's no excuse. The container should have been safe. There's no reason for it to be to have broken, and yet it did, and so you are liable for any damages as a result of that. I can think of a story that I know of a person who, when they owned a garage. Now this was many, many years ago, back when service stations actually did work. Gas stations actually did repair your car. And a young man came in to this gas station. His car wasn't working. The person who owned the gas station did not have time to help him. But he did allow him to come in and try to work on his car, and what happened was the car blew gas out of its tailpipe right beside a heater. The heater caught on fire, caught the guy on fire, and he died. And as a result, the man who owned the gas station was liable. He was, there was no excuse possible for this. He was in fact liable and had to pay the damages, and of course the poor man always felt terrible having caused, in the eyes of the law, caused this man's death. So strict liability, there's no excuse possible, you are liable. All right, now we're going to talk about general considerations with regards to the law. Every crime is defined by its elements. Again, the elements are the things that are part of that crime. In order to be proven guilty of a crime, all the elements must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. I'll give you an example here, robbery. There are 3 elements part of robbery. The first is taking and carrying away of goods or money. Pretty straightforward. 2, taking from someone's person. In other words, I had it, they took it. Okay? And 3, use of force or intimidation. Okay? So that's an important part, force or intimidation. So if somebody pickpockets, steals my, I don't carry a wallet, but let's say I was carrying a wallet and they stole my wallet, pickpocketed it. I didn't even know it was gone. Is that robbery? Can you say for sure that's robbery? If you say yes, you're wrong because of number 3. Right there, number 3 identifies the use of force or intimidation. That didn't happen when somebody picks your pocket. Now, if they have a gun or a knife, or even if they threaten my life, I don't see any kind of weapon, but they threaten me, that is robbery. Okay, so, and we're going to see that as we look at the individual crimes that we will see in a couple chapters from now. There are very specific elements for each crime, and in order for that to be that particular crime, those elements must be able to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, in addition, a single act can be both a crime and a civil wrong. The best example I can give you is the O.J. Simpson trials. There was both a criminal trial and a civil trial. He was sued for the deaths of his ex-wife and the gentleman that was with her, and he was, and obviously then there was also a criminal trial. Of course, he won that, but lost the civil case. Right, so that's, I think that's about as good an example as I can see. So, and it's important to remember, and if we get time, and I think we will, when we talk about civil trials, anybody can sue you for anything. Anybody can. Doesn't mean they'll be successful. It just means they can sue you. All right. So we want to make sure we're clear about the idea of state and federal crimes. Criminal laws exist at both the state and federal levels. All right. Some crimes are state only. In fact, probably in most cases, more crimes on the state level than are heard on the state level than on the federal level. Crimes like assault, drunk driving, and additional crimes fit on the state level. As you should know by now, trials, more trials are heard on the local level, state level, than in the federal level. Okay, some crimes indeed are federal. Failure to pay taxes, that's one that's, well, certainly close to dear to my mind right now, because I still need to do my taxes, which I hope I get done here very soon. But certain crimes can be both state and federal. Illegal drug possession, bank robbery are both examples of things that can be both state and federal. You can have a situation where a there are state crimes going on and federal crimes at the same time. But that also can mean you can have a violation of both state and federal in one actual crime. Okay, again, illegal drug possession, bank robbery, so on. There are additional classes of crime. We've talked about those already, felony versus misdemeanor. Felony, of course, is you're serving a time of 1 year or more, and a misdemeanor is usually a far less serious crime, and you may not serve any time, or you may serve up to a year. So those are the classes of crime. Now, parties to a crime include the principal, and that's the guy who's the perpetrator. He's the one who did the actual act. And also, you could have an accomplice, someone who helps the principal commit a crime, can be charged with and convicted of the same crime as the principal. So an accomplice is somebody that just helps, but may not be there for the actual crime. You know, accomplice could be somebody who is provides information for a bank robber. You know, could be a bank teller. They're providing the information, helps commit the crime, but isn't actually doing the crime. But because they were a principal, they were very involved with the principal in committing the crime, they can be charged with the same crime and convicted just like the principal. All right, in addition, you could have an accessory before the fact. I just heard on TV just the other day of an accessory, you know, it was in the news, of a guy who was going to be charged with accessory before the fact. And of course, this is a person who orders a crime or helps the principal commit the crime, but who is not present during the crime. Now, it seems like that is very similar to the accomplice, the accessory before the fact, but there is some subtle differences, and to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what that dividing line is, but you should know that if you are an accomplice, you can be charged with the same crime. The accessory before the fact is you are being charged with, in fact, the accessory before the fact. Okay. Now, accessory after the fact is just what it sounds like. If a person who knows a crime was committed helps the principal or accomplice avoid capture or helps them escape. Usually accessory before the fact doesn't know that the crime is being committed until after the crime has been committed. This person knows because somebody told them that that crime occurred. And so they help the principal or an accomplice avoid capture to help them escape. I know of a circumstance when I was working for Children's Services of a woman who I was working with, and she was involved with a guy who had been running from the cops. They called me in because they were absolutely certain she was hiding this person in her attic. And so they called me in because I was going to have to pick up her child because they were going to arrest her. And so, because she was an accessory after the fact, she was trying to help that person avoid capture. And as a result, she is now charged with a crime. Fortunately, her trial then ended up with a relative, but still, she made an awful mistake as a result and was charged with accessory after the fact. All right, moving on. Now, a crime of omission is something that someone fails to perform an act required by criminal law. If he or she is physically able to perform the required act. So, crime of omission is, for example, you fail to file your income tax, and you don't get to say, "Oh, I forgot." That's a crime of omission. You just simply didn't do what you were supposed to do. And as a result, you can be charged with a crime. Now, I've had people ask me, what if you see a crime and don't call it in? Is that a crime of omission? Not really, no. But if you, for example, know of someone who is going to commit a crime, you might, and then refuse to let them know, you might be charged with a crime of omission. That's a very gray area, and I would be careful about that. Okay, preliminary crimes, these certain types of behavior that takes place before and often in preparation of for the commission of a crime. And these are solicitation and attempt. So, solicitation is to ask, command, urge, advise another person to commit a crime. You are trying to get them to do something. For example, solicitation is often used when trying to get somebody, like a wife trying to get her husband killed, or the vice versa, husband trying to get his wife killed. And what they do is they ask or urge or offer to pay someone to commit that crime. That's solicitation. Attempt is when someone performs all the elements of a crime but fails to achieve the criminal result. An attempt could be, for example, if you want to, if you're angry and you want to murder somebody and you fire that gun at that person but miss, that's an attempt. You performed all the elements of the crime. You fired the gun. There was force and intimidation, but the only thing is you didn't actually succeed in killing the person. Then that's an attempt. In this particular case, we'd call it attempted murder, attempted robbery, attempted. It's all about you're getting ready to perform, but you actually fail to achieve the criminal results. If somebody is crawling through my window and somebody comes home or I come home, scares them off, that's still an attempt. So you have to keep that in mind, that an attempt is you are performing all the elements. Now, conspiracy is also part of this. This is an agreement between two or more persons to commit a crime. Again, it might be, conspiracy could be, again, that husband or that wife trying to pay somebody to commit or to kill their spouse. This is an agreement between, and you could be charged with conspiracy. So make sure this is to ask, command, it's trying to get it done. This is the agreement to get it done. All right, now, an overt act, in most states and under federal law, an overt act is an act open to view and is required for conviction for conspiracy. I think you see on TV, if you like to watch the cop shows, and of course I do, a lot of times where they will capture or catch somebody in the act of trying to pay somebody to commit a crime. That is the overt act. That's the conspiracy. And so that is when you can get yourself into serious trouble and, of course, be convicted as a result of that overt act. Okay. That is it for Chapter 8. All right, hope that is helpful. If you haven't gotten those notes in, please get them in as soon as possible. All right, take care, be safe.